Hey everybody, I'm just going to get myself set up here. I'm just starting the stream now, so let me tune in over here so I can chat and take questions and such. So I'm in the room if you're here. And let me just quickly send a tweet that I'm live so that everybody can tune in. Okay, it's on Twitter. Tweet. Okay. All right, so I am live. So the idea here is we have an Apic. Now, it doesn't have a lot in it, and I don't need it to have a lot in it. I was sort of trying to prove the idea, and I'll be doing some development for maybe an hour tonight, maybe till about 8 p.m. So Apic is made up of spines and leaves in a full mesh, and this is like the physical underlay, the concrete model, where we can get APIs about interfaces and nodes and spines and leaves, etc. Now, we're also interested in the logical model, the actual application configuration. So what we can do is, using these logical constructs, the Apic policies, I've started with tenants, and I've done EPGs, and I'm just working on bridge domains, and then we'll look at contracts and VRFs. And we sort of have to understand the relationship between these. So each tenant could have outside networks, application profiles, bridge domains, VRFs, contracts, filters. And you can see some of these are linked together. So I've started here at tenant, and I've done bridge domain and EPGs down here. Let's take a look and see if we can get some more of these models. Now, what am I doing with these? Well, I'll show you. And I'm just trying to count, so if you could bear with me here, I have to sort out which field I'm missing. I have one too many fields. It looks, no, there's configuration issues, optimized bandwidth, ARP flood, ARP BP cast, endpoint clear, endpoint move, host-based, intersite, IP learning. Which one did I double up? If you can spot it, let me know. I'm trying to see, I have one too many cells on this side, I think. I've missed one. Unicast route, unicast MAC, unicast multicast, P6 virtual MAC. Okay, type, segment, scope, PC tag, owner tag. Maybe they do line up. 76, 217. No, that's 41, because up here I have 170, 130. So I have one too many down here. Hey Yairo, how are you? Sorry, this isn't too interesting. I could come back to this. It's just my table's not rendering, and I'm trying to see which field over here I'm missing or have duplicated. Annotation child, externally managed by, local owner, monitoring policy, user domain, config issues, optimized bandwidth, ARP flood, broadcast, EP clear, EP move, host based, intersite, IP learning, MAC allow, limit learn. Actually, is my CSV lined up, or is it off? See, it is off, so maybe it's easier to see here what I've missed. MTU looks like a date instead of MTU. That could be throwing it off. The MAC is correct, the link local is correct. So let me take a look at what I've lined up for MTU. Right here. I have this one in twice. That's what I've been looking for. Needle in a haystack. So let me fix it in all of these documents, and we'll get back into development. So I have to fix it in the CSV. Did I not copy just that one? Well, let me just do it this way. Yeah, all right, I don't know how that slipped in there. That's a mistake. So what I'm doing is I'm getting the JSON back from the Apic, and transforming it into these business ready documents. Why is it still doing that? But I've doubled up a cell, as you can see, and I'm just trying to fix that because it's not right. So I just want to make it, otherwise all the cells are off and the tables are off. So now I haven't done the mind map yet. Okay, so here's the idea. Sorry, my colleague's pinging me. Here's the idea. So now let's look over the Python. And it's really easy. It is incredibly easy to work with Apics with Python. I cannot stress that enough. The Apic was built to be programmed. It's a software-defined network. So this is incredibly simple. All I'm doing is prompting for or letting this set up an environment variable, which I've done. The URL of the Apic, the username, and the password. That's all we need, and I'm doing all of the rest of the work. And I've only done a few, but it's working out just wonderfully. So we run the code, and the first thing we're going to do is get a token. And the get token goes to the AAA login.json. So it's your URL to your ACI, your Apic /API/AAA login. We send that the username and password, and we get back a cookie. And then we pass that cookie to all the subsequent API calls to authenticate. So once I have my cookie, I start calling tenants, EPGs, and I'm still working on bridge domains. I get the JSON dump of the URL, and then I send it to my all files, and all files iterates over my files. So tenants, the URL is API node class. Now I want the class of tenants, which will give me the instantiation of each tenant from that class and attributes. Similar for EPGs, similar for bridge domains. Then I just have my little file makers. JSON file, easy. I just JSON dump and write that to JSON. YAML, I use the YAML, PyYAML library, and I JSON load that JSON, and then I YAML dump that into a clean YAML file. The other files I send to Jinja templates, and that's what we're working on. So right now I'm about to do the mind map template for bridge domains, and then we'll go find another API. So for mind maps, I like to take my HTML template, and I just literally copy the whole thing up to, say, the name here. That's really what I want. And then I go into my mind map template and I add some logic here. I say else if BD in API. I think that's my logic, if something in API. And then I say, right, end this if. And then I paste in that code. Now to make this a mind map, I don't need any of the HTML stuff, so let's just start cleaning that up. And these headers I'm just going to use so that they're easily typed. So, or copy and paste it if they're long. So let me just get rid of that stuff, and then come down here and get rid of this stuff and bring that to the start. Okay, so, and get rid of that table row. Okay, so for the mind map, what we're going to do is we're going to have the title here be bridge domains, and then we're going to, for name, we're going to give it 2 and say name, or even just leave it blank as the root bridge domain. And then all of these others are at least going to be 3 in depth. 1, 2, 3, space, and we'll junk them to, group them together if there's an opportunity to do so. So this is the alias, this is the description, this is the status, this is the DN, and I'm going to actually fix DNs while I'm in here. I'm going to make them hyperlinks, which requires a little bit of code, but we'll do that after I'm done this. I'm going to, this is the last file type for bridge domains, and then before I move on to any other APIs, I'd like to call something out and show you what we're going to do. So UID, and this, it seems tedious, it's not that long. I'm using autocomplete. That's why I copy in this up here, so that the autocomplete has a reference to what I'm typing, and then I'll get rid of it. externally managed by local owner, monitoring policy DN, user domain, configuration issues, optimize WAN bandwidth, and then we have ARP flood. And now this is just incredible. We're getting all of this information for these bridge domains without ever needing to log into the Apic and mess around with the GUI system. And it's super fast. So here we're going to do EP, and then we're going to add another header here for clear and for move detect mode. So if you've used ACI, some of these things are going to mean a little bit more to you than if you have not. What host-based routing means inside of a bridge domain, what move detect means, all of these things have significance. So another opportunity here to clump some together, intersite, and then this will be bum traffic allow. Now imagine this stuff and you'll see it as a spreadsheet, as a mind map, so you can easily see, particularly the spreadsheet, the right, you can easily compare, sort, search, filter, all that wonderful stuff. So thanks for joining. I see I've got a few people watching. Let me know where you're from and say hi if you'd like to. Multicast allow, limit IP learn to subnets. There's only a few more here. Link layer address, MAC, multicast allow, MTU, I could probably maybe group these multicasts together. Destination packet allow. Yeah, let me do that. Is there anything else related to multicast? IP6V multicast allow. Multicast. Allow. IPv6 allow. Destination packet allow. There's a couple down here. Unknown multicast. We'll take those two. Unknown. Action. Oh, that's Mac unicast. Hang on. Let me move that back down under unicast. So how's everybody doing? Unknown action. So if you're working on anything cool, let me know. So this is IPv6 unknown action. And we could even group these together and have IPv6 together and IPv4 together. Something like this. Destination packet allow. Allow. Unknown action. I don't think there's a destination. I don't know. We'll just leave it like that for now. That's fine. Or we could do it like this. IPv6. And just have the extra layer for IPv6 versus IPv4. Something like that. And then we could have owners here. Owner. Key, tag, PC tag, scope, segment, type, unicast route, unknown Mac unicast action. Well, upgrading SD-WAN is never boring. That's got to be living on the edge doing that, updating remote sites like that. That would make me a little nervous. Virtual Mac. I always hated working on the WAN because you never know if you lose reachability. Alright, so this is modified timestamp. Whoops. And we're done with the mind map. So let me just make sure that I've added the code. No, I haven't. So let me do this. If bridge domain is in the URL, write out the bridge domain mind map. I'll have to answer my colleague later. Oh, it's Spanish technical debt, eh? Well, you could use the Google text-to-speech you could use the Google text-to-speech. Let me close some of these apps. And translate your tech knowledge into Spanish using the API. So let's try to run this, and let's take a look at our else. Oh, geez, I did my else if wrong. Excuse me, where's my else if here? Oh, and I didn't delete all this stuff. I wasn't quite done yet. So let me get rid of that, and this should be else. Excuse me, I can't do that. Else if, like that. Okay, so my bridge domain, and then let me go to my mind map file, and I'll show you what the mind map looks like of our bridge domains. Now there's, you know, a few bridge domains, and this maybe looks better as an Excel file, but we can minimize, you know, there's my in-band management, there's my default, there's two defaults, and there is another one. And you can see that I have all of the details. There's the multicast with the IPv6 breakdown. There's my owner keys. There's my intersite. There's my endpoint. Pretty good, pretty good. So that's a mind map of the bridge domains. So now what we can do is, let me show you something in the JSON. So we'll start with tenant here, and we're going to look at the JSON. Now, no, I guess this doesn't, what I was thinking was, since we have the DN for each tenant, we could go back to this and go get each tenant's VRFs. We did bridge domains, and if this works for tenant VRFs, we'll get subnets per bridge domain. There should be application profiles. I don't know that this Apic has application profiles. To be honest with you, I'm not sure. So then let's, right, if we wanted to pick, let's say the VRF in a tenant per tenant, and we'll write the logic to do this. We're going to go into our tenants. We're going to go into networking VRFs, but before I click on VRFs, I'm going to show you a couple tools. So if you click on the little gear, there's an API inspector, and we're going to use this. I don't know why I got an error there. We're going to use the API inspector to get the API URL that we want. So I'm in the common VRF here, but what we want is the VRF's class objects URL path to the API. And then there's also a object store browser which we can use to see that the keys and what the structure of that API is going to be. So let's get our inspector open, and let's go into VRFs. And my API inspector should have had a path in here, and we can highlight get. So it's not AAA refresh. Common JSON query target subclass tree. Right here, FV context. So what I'm going to do is just see if I can use that class, FV context. And let's go back into the code and make a new a new function here. So what we're going to do is just copy these two, and we're going to call this one VRFs, or we could call it contexts to stay in line with the parlance. So self.context, contexts, and we'll take bridge domains and copy it, and we'll call it contexts, and that was fvctx.json, this class. Let's see if this works. I don't know if I have to do it per tenant or if I can just call the class for contexts. So we're going to change this from bridge domain status code to contexts status code. And let's just see if we can write the JavaScript object notation that we get back. So if ctx is in the URL, we're going to go to contexts JSON contexts, and I need to make that folder. So let me copy this and rename this to contexts. And I have to just flush out the bridge domain files. And again, I don't know. I assume that there's some VRFs in this topology. I don't know. It's a sandbox type environment, so I may need to make a context or two for this to work. So let's try to run this code. And what we can see is that I didn't save the file. We can see that I didn't save the file. So let's try that again. And there is our call to contexts. And there is the, right, this is the JSON from that context. So what I'm getting here is the VRFs. So sometimes they go by context, sometimes they go by, and then what I could also do is pass in that class name, fvctx, right, and run the query, and I get back all of the keys that I'm going to need to template. And we can see that this is exactly what I'm doing. Right here are all of the VRF instantiations of that class. But instead of doing it through the object store and making you, copy this or export it or download it, I'm just doing it right through Python, which is like instant. You can see, let me run the time command. It takes 0.011 seconds. Right? So and I'm getting, 4 different layers and all these different documents in, milliseconds, right? You can't even launch your browser that fast, let alone go into the object store browser and find the class you want. So let's take a look at what the context looks like. And we can see if I collapse these, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 VRFs, or I could have just gone to the total count. So now some of these are duplicated, right? So what's the next step, John? Well, the next step is to enable the YAML. So I'm going to take this code here, the context, and go under my YAML function and say this one goes to YAML, context.yaml, and I want clean YAML instead of parsed JSON. So now we're going to run it, right? And there it is in YAML, in case you want a nice YAML dictionary instead of the JSON. And they're side by side, so you can sort of get a sense on what one looks like and what the other looks like. Okay, you following along so far? Any questions? So now we're going to do the Jinja 2 templating. So we're going to make our base CSV file, and this is when most of the work happens. Everything else is actually pretty easy to do. Well, it is pretty easy to do too. It's a little bit time consuming because I have to template this data. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into our CSV template, on this side, and we're going to copy the bridge domain one and the else, all that code, and paste it in here. And we're going to change this to if ctx is in the API. And then we're just going to see what we already have copied. A lot of them are already in here. So name, alias, description. We have name, alias, description. status DN UID. There's status and UID. There's the DN. Annotation, yep. Child action, yep. Externally managed by, yep. Local owner, yep. Scroll this over. Monitoring policy DN and yeah, these two, yes, for sure. I think I have the owner CAG and key as well. I'm just cleaning this up a bit. User domain, configuration issues. Okay, so I can stop here at configuration issues. So I'm going to go to the end. I'm going to keep modified timestamp. And here's how I usually do this. I'm going to take these fields and paste them over here, and then I'm going to just work with them a little bit. So I'm going to delete that first one, and I also need my for loop. Whoops. So I need my for loop and my end for. Oh, I already have, hang on. Sorry. I have my for loop already, but I got to change my for loop. Let's do one thing at a time. I'll come back to the for loop. So let's get our, we have to do the same here. So instead of for bridge domain, this is going to be for context in data to template IM data. And then we have to look, so it's FVCTX instead of FV and instead of bridge domain. So where did I say user domain is the last one? Right here, user domain. And we're going to keep the timestamp at the very last field. So we're going to find this, and we're going to change it for context.fvctx, right? This key here, dot attributes. And we're just going to replace this row. Whoops, one too many. And now we're going to finish our logic here. So this should have not gone there. Well, I'm not quite done yet. We have to finish our header row. So let's do our header row. And the header row takes probably the most time. And you'll see what I mean. This just is, it's just the tedium of having to template it. So it's not that bad. There's not that many fields. I've done worse. So bring that back. And then we just make this a little bit better, right? So bridge domain enforced enable IP data plane learning known multicast action owner key owner tag PC. I don't know if it's enforce directory, maybe enforce directory PC enforce directory updated PC enforce preference PC tag scope segment VRF ID and VRF index. Okay, so now we use our when can you clone my repo? It won't be too long. I'm going to get a few more examples going, and then it's empty right now. I haven't done a push, but pretty soon I'll be posting this up. So then we go all the way down here, and we bring all of this back as our header row for our CSV file. Now we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to use a little bit more find and replace. So I'm going to paste those in. Unfortunately, I have to do this one more time. You know what I should do is copy it when I've already done it. Yeah, that's a lesson learned. Instead of doing this section twice, once I've done it once, copy it then instead of, Okay, that's a mental note to improve this process. Sort of dry programming, don't repeat yourself, and I'm doing this twice. And then we're going to take this and find it, and we're going to replace it with squigglies mustache mustache context dot attributes, and I see a mistake. Attributes dot, whoops, here. Yeah, that's what we want. And then what we're going to do is find the comma and replace it with space mustache mustache comma to close out those fields. And don't use replace all. And then I see a mistake here. This ftctx attribute should actually be fvctx dot attributes. So I'm just going to replace all that was a mistake. And then we're going to take our line and draw the line, collapse everything, and bring it back here. Okay, so in theory, I should have a working CSV file of our contexts because nobody wants to work with JSON or YAML. They want to work with human readable files. So let's make sure that CTX. Okay, so let's run it. And there's my context CSV file. So I have all my VRFs by name. I can drag over and get all this information about them. Right? It's wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. If there's a discrepancy, right, if one of these says yes instead of no, or if data plane learning is not enabled, right, it just jumps right out at you. So let's do the other file types. Pretty cool stuff, right? So now we're going to do the Markdown file. And this just becomes Markdown, and this becomes .md. Now this gets really easy now that I already have the CSV data. So I'm going to copy that whole block of CSV data and go into my Markdown file and add it here. And then what I do is I add a header row, a title bar, and this one is contexts. I add a pipe space, and then I go to the end and a space pipe. And that's in front of each of my rows from the CSV file. And then I find the comma, and I replace it with space pipe space. I'm going to do this one at a time. I probably could replace all. I don't think there's any other commas in this document. But just to be safe, I'm going to do it this way. Now there is one bit of tedium coming up that unfortunately I have to do, and that's by adding a delimiter row. So we can chat while I'm doing this, or if you have any questions, it would be a good time. I sort of have to go and delimit all of these fields, which is a little bit of typing. It's a tedious thing. But the upside is we get a nice Markdown ready, or GitHub ready Markdown file that renders in VS Code or in a Git repository. It renders because it's Markdown. It's partly why I get this file, is for the Git friendliness of Markdown. And there's a couple ways to do this. I could drag this over so that I can see what I'm doing and go a little faster. Oh, that's a mistake, VRFID. Does that mean I have that mistake in my CSV file? Probably. Probably. So we're going to save that, and let's go catch that mistake. VRR. Oh, VFF right here, VRF. Okay, good. And let's run our Markdown file. And there's the Markdown file. And there's what it looks like. Nice rendered Markdown table. Which also, by the way, renders as a mind map because it's valid Markdown. It's just stacked differently. It's not like a nice layer by layer mind map. but you could read this. There's all the header keys and there's all of the values. So now the next file is the HTML page, which is again super quick and easy to do because we already have a CSV file. So context, hang on, I copied the wrong thing. I'm skipped one. Context, and this becomes HTML, and this is HTML. Save that, and now we're going to go to the CSV file and copy that block of logic one more time. Bring it into our HTML file, and go to the end of our table and paste it in. And then we're going to just add some stuff, which we're going to steal from the previous working example. So what we need is a table row, table header, table, and a header. And again, I'm importing at the top and bottom. I'm including my header CSS and my footer script from datatables.net. That's where the magic comes from. So I'm going to change the header from bridge domains to contexts. We're going to do table header / table header, finish the table row, finish the table header, do a table body, add a table row, add td /td /tr outside of the for loop. But then I'm going to close our table body and close our table. I think that's what we need to do. Table body, yeah, table body. Okay, so now we do our find replace with the commas again, but instead of pipes, we're going to do /table header, shift enter, 1, 2, 3, 4, table header, which is going to change all these commas into the valid HTML header syntax. Now when I hit the next comma down here, I'm going to change it to TD for the table body. And I'm going to go one at a time, and that's it. So now I'm going to run this code, and we should have an HTML page now. There's context HTML, open default browser. I can sort, I can drag these around, I can show all columns, I can paginate if there's many VRFs. I have all of my data spawning across the field. I have all my distinguished names. Just wonderful, just wonderful. All right, so now the last one, and I'm going to do the same thing, is take from the N4 all the way to the name and head into my mind map file. And at the end of that N4, I got to add my logic. So if ctx in API, and if, oh, and I need an else here. So I'm going to paste all that in, get rid of all of my HTML, because this is Markdown, not HTML. And then I'm going to refactor something. I forgot to do that. I wanted to do something before we moved along. And again, I only keep these just so that I have autocomplete available to me down here. I'm not actually going to use those. They'll get deleted before we're finished with this mind map. So we strip out that, bring this back. So then our very first one is going to be contexts. Then we're going to have 2, and we're not going to put the name, we're just going to put the context. Then we're going to draw a line here and go 1, 2, 3. And then we start filling these in again. So alias, description, status, DN, UID, annotation, child action, externally managed by, local owner, monitoring policy DN, user domain, bridge domain, enforced enable. Hey, all right, thanks, Danny. I appreciate you dropping by. Yeah, it was really good seeing you yesterday. We're gonna have to do that more often. That was really good. Danny Wade just saying hi. And you got to be following his streams too. He's doing some really nice automation work. Little plug for Danny's streams as well. They're Thursday nights. You should be joining those. So this is owner, key, tag, and then these are a bunch of PC, enforce directory. Yeah, it is enforce. Enforce directory updated. I mean, I could put maybe both of those under their own enforce directory. I don't know, because then I just sort of have it like this without a title. I don't know. Yeah, let's do that. We'll just make that one updated. And then this one is enforce preference tag scope segment VRF ID index, and then last modified timestamp. All right, good. So now let's save that. Did I make the mind map? No, I still have to add the code here. And oh, I see what I've done. I'm just going to fix this. I guess I don't have to. Let me just update this so it's correct. Markdown template, markdown template, markdown output. It doesn't really matter, but it's just, I want to, and people are going to use this code. I want it to be easy and explicit. And it looks like when I was copying and pasting these, I forgot to change my variable names. So let's give them local relevance to their function. Mind map template. It's just one less booby trap. Okay, good. So then I copy the context, change this to mind map, change that to mind map output, run the code, and there is the context mind map. And I just have to preview the mind map. No, it's wrong. John, hang on. I forgot to clean out my mess. I gotta delete this stuff. Let's try that again. That's better. And I saved it as an HTML page, it looks like. Yeah, Markdown. Ha, third time's a charm. Yeah, I should have spotted that. All right, so now, blue, we can preview it. There is the mind map for each of those contexts, or VRFs. Add a band, in band, overlay one, all the different bits of information about them. So again, that's CSV. That took, what, 10 minutes to do the context, right? So now we just keep shopping for APIs. One thing I think I'd like to fix, though, in my templates that are supporting hyperlinks, so not the CSV file, but, well, I suppose the CSV file as well. What I want to look for is the DN. So what I need to do to make it an actual hyperlink is in all of these templates that I'm passing it to. And I'm not going to do it for the CSV. I suppose a CSV file, if I open it in Excel I don't think hyperlinks work anyway because it's just a comma separated. It's not an Excel file. But what I have is the URL, the base URL here. So the self.aci. So let's pass that into our templates for Markdown. So we're going to add a comma here and say URL equals and then self.aci, and we'll come back to why I'm going to need that in my template. And this is how you feed things into your template. You add them to the data inside of the render, comma, and that makes the variable available to Jinja 2. And you'll see why I want to do this. Okay, so now if I go to my Markdown file, we'll do it here first, and look for .dn. There should be 4 of them. So what we're going to do is we're going to change this to say square bracket URL. No, DN. Let's do it that way. And then round brackets. Unfortunately, I can't do a find replace on this. I should have done this from the beginning. I'm iterating here. I didn't think of this immediately. That this is a hyperlink. If I make it a hyperlink by feeding in, oh, and I'm not, John. I can't just do that. I have to say DN, and then I gotta do mustaches URL mustaches slash. I don't think does tenant, let me look at the JSON. So I need to put the slash in as well. So I need to fix that here. URL slash, and then URL slash, and then here DN round bracket URL slash, and then the round bracket. Now let's test this. I think this should actually make these hyperlinks to those distinguished names now. So if I go to my, I don't know, let's just look at contexts, Markdown. You see, and now I have distinguished name URL links. They're not hyperlinks. I thought it would take you to the JSON. Do I have to add .json behind it? No. Alright, it doesn't work that way. Ha! All that for nothing. Okay, never mind. That was just a thought. I thought I could make those hyperlinks. Let me just undo that real quick. And we'll move on and find another URL. I got 10 minutes. I should have time to do one more. Got a few more people watching. So let's go find a... so that was VRFs. Let's try to find subnets under bridge domains and see if I have subnets. And we could even maybe try Visore and see. So it's also called Visore, the object browser, and I say it with a bit of Italian magic. Visore. You want to use Visore. So FV subnet. I don't have any subnets in this tenant, or in this, that's too bad. I'm going to have to find an actually populated Apic to work against. What other things are there in the MIT? I just closed the viewer. Application profiles. Endpoint groups I've done. Let's look and see if there's any application. No, I want to go back here, application profile. So there's a default application profile. And again, if I turn on let me go back to application profiles. There's a default one. Now in my API inspector, newest is at the bottom. Yeah, I've already done AEPGs. Trying to find something that might have something in it. So is there, we've done bridge domain, we've done VRFs. We could try L2 outs. I don't know. I doubt this has any L2 outs either. Class is L2 X'd out. So we'll do it, I don't know, let's just check and see what the JSON payload looks like. Again, it's really a matter of me finding, hey Chase, thanks for joining. I think I may have access to a more populated Apic in a different lab somewhere, but like this one doesn't even have a core or anything, it's just a standalone controller. We could maybe look at the controller info too and see about that. That might be better than L2 outs. Let's take a look. So if we go to the system and go to controllers, let's take a look and see what that resolves to. Infra SN node. Is that what I'm looking for here? I assume so. Let me try that. Infra SN node. So let me just make note of that URL. That's not the one I wanted. I don't know, let's see what this one does. So what we can do is we're going to copy these two, paste them in, and look for SN node. SN nodes. Copy this whole thing. Change our class to infra SN node. And let me make sure that is a class. Yeah, it is a class. So let's see what we get. So then if SN node is in, we'll get the JSON file first. If infra SN, and then this is going to be infra structure SN. And I need to make that folder. So let's just copy paste F2 infrastructure SN and flush out the old files. And let's run the code. Hang on, it didn't, something didn't, I didn't rename it here, that's why. Okay, that's better. Yeah, we could look for L3 outs. Again, like I said, it's a very, very minimally configured. I don't have any SN nodes. What a waste. Okay, well, let me undo that. And we can, yeah, it's okay. If I can't find any more, I'll find a better more populated Apic tomorrow. So we did some pretty good work though. I mean, I could see if maybe if there's contracts. Doesn't look like there are any. Policies. Right, so in theory, any single one of these we could transform into these documents very easily, just like I've shown you tonight. So I think I'm going to wrap it up there. It's getting a little late to start a new one, but we've made some good progress. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let me save this first, and let me just flush out all the sample files. I'm just going to flush the sample files, and then I'll put this up on PyPy and up on GitHub. Now GitHub, I should put git ignore files in all of these folders so they get created. Let me do that. Next. And infrastructure SN didn't work. But we got 4 pretty high level, pretty high value constructs from the logical model. I'd like to get into the concrete model and get things like interfaces and counters and things of that nature. Alright, so now let me make a .git ignore files, because they're empty folders, they won't track. So yeah, I wrote this just to answer your question. This code's going up in the next couple minutes. And if you have honestly, it's open source. So if anybody wants to contribute, if you've seen how easy this is, if you want to contribute your own paths and your own templates and stuff. Oh, thanks, Drew. Thanks for joining. I've just, what I need is a more populated Apic. But that's okay. We got some really good work done, and if I ran the code, I would just undo all those deletes. But in 0.019 seconds, I'm getting the cookie, tenants, EPGs, bridge domains, contexts or VRFs, and this infrastructure one was empty. So now to get it up onto PyPy, I say poetry version, and let's do measure. We'll bring this up to a 1.0 release. Poetry, I have to update a file here, this init file, to 1.00. Poetry build, poetry publish, and I use a token for this. Let me get my token. And you can't see my whole token, so I'm okay here. Okay, so now if you want to use this at home, you can do pip install ACI, and this will, all you need is your reachability to your Apic, and I'm ready to do my git commit, so all this code will be available on GitHub as well. And this is my initial commit, save and close. And thank you all for joining, especially Yairo and Chase and Drew. It's really nice to see everybody. Just sort of unwinding. Someone asked me earlier from the TAC. I hope Matthew got to see this. Matthew will connect tomorrow, and I'll give you a bit of a deeper dive. So thanks again, everyone. This is ACI, Business Ready Documents from the Cisco ACI Apic controller. Thanks.